All right, for all of my non-farm savvy people out there, or maybe some people that are farm savvy but just don't row crop farm, I'm gonna do a little explanation today of how a cotton planter works. So this is a John Deere 1780 no-till planter. It's a 16 row. It's on 30-inch spacing, so it is 40 feet wide. It has a 2x2 fertilizer attachment. So when I say 2x2 fertilizer, what that means is these openers right up here put fertilizer 2 inches deep and 2 inches beside the furrow. The fertilizer's in those tanks right up there, 225 gallons on each side. There's 2 John Blue squeeze pumps that run off of a ground drive wheel that turns the pumps, suck the fertilizer out of there, put it through these main tubes and down into the secondaries. Once they come into the secondaries, they come right down this tube back here into the slot that this disc right here makes. This depth wheel holds this disc at an even depth. That way it's banding the fertilizer at an even 2 inches. So that's going on before the planting part of it ever starts. Moving back to the actual seeding part, and you'll have to bear with me, I planted up until it started raining yesterday and I made one too many passes and got everything a little bit muddy. So on the front side, we've got a set of row cleaners that run along the ground. They've got spikes on them, and they actually run along the ground and move any residue or things out of the way and open up a clear path for this no-till coulter to run. The coulter just kind of cuts the ground lightly and softens things up. This planter has a double disc setup, as do all planters that I can think of, other than like a single disc grain drill or a tine type seeder. Like a hoe drill. So these openers right here are set up in a V and they cut a slot in the ground. This right here comes along and kind of neatens up the trench a little bit, makes a little bit more uniform V. The seed comes out of this seed tube right here and drops down into here. This is a seed firmer. It comes along and pushes the seed down into the wet soil at the bottom of the trench. Once you get back here, these are spike closing wheels. They actually knead the ground back together and close the trench. And then you get back here to the drag chain. This chain right here will kind of drag some residue and loose soil and things like that back over the trench to keep it covered. Some of the adjustments on this planter, you can adjust the closing wheels here. It's put on a pretty loose setting right now because you can see how wet it is. I got a heck of a mess on my hands right now. So if you were to pull it back to any of these other settings, that would actually tighten the closing wheels up, put more pressure on them, and they would be able to close the trench with more force if it was dry. And you needed a little bit more compaction. We've got an adjustment up here on each of these units that actually sets the depth of the seeding. It moves these wheels right here up and down and lets the discs either cut more aggressively deeper, or it pulls them up to where they seed shallower. So going back to the actual seeding part of it, I've got one of the meters here taken apart. These are precision meters. They run off of this seed plate right here. So what happens, this plate right here sits in here and turns as the planter goes. It's ran off of this chain right here, and there's a hydraulic drive motor that I will talk more about here in just a second. So as this plate right here turns, there's seed dropping down out of this box, and I've got one open here. There's you some Dynagrow cotton seed in there. That drops down out of this box into the meter from that hole right there. This plate, this is a vacuum planter. It's got a suction off of that vacuum bar. That there's a hose that ties into that port right there. It creates a suction on this side of the plate, and on this side over here, the seeds are sucked up against each individual hole that you can see. So the plate's turning, the seeds are sucked up, and when they get right over here, this is a non-vacuum zone. There's no more vacuum, so the seeds, gravity takes over and the seeds fall through here, and that's when they end up in this seed tube right here, and that's how they fall out. There's a sensor in here that's got electronic meter in it that tells me up in the cab how many seeds are falling, and it knows how far the planter's gone, so it tells me how far apart the seeds are. We're planting a seed about every 7 inches here. So that is handy to know, and it also lets you know if you've got something stopped up or when you're out of seed, because it knows when no seeds have fallen anymore. So this planter is hydraulically driven. It's got a left and a right drive on it. It's controlled electronically from the cab. Hydraulic over electric, so it has hydraulic hoses that are hooked up to it. It's on a remote. You turn them on, and as soon as it gets the electrical connection that it needs, it will kick the drives on, and it will turn the chains, which turns this bar, turns this sprocket here, which turns these secondary bars, which turn the chains on each different meter. So you can actually set a different seating rate in the cab, and it knows how fast you're going, and it will speed up and slow down the drives to compensate. So it's really neat. The old school ones, there was gears and different sprockets and things on the chain, and you would go up and down and change. This one, with a touch of the button up in the cab, you can get it changed over. Since this is a no-till planter, down pressure is always something that you know, we don't have enough of. So this is an air planter. Some of them use springs. This one uses air. There's an air pump out on the end. You set a certain pressure. I run this one at about 60 pounds. It airs these airbags up, and that holds pressure down on these units when the ground gets a little hard to cut through the hard soil. Going a little bit deeper into our explanation here, this is a 9180 case. It is an older tractor. It's been retrofitted and upgraded. We've got a cab kit in it. Let that stop. Got a cab kit in it and a John Deere GPS system. This is an ATU from John Deere. It actually goes on the factory case steering components, and it allows me to run the Starfire GPS on this older tractor. So it's a really neat system. We upgraded it a few years ago. This right here is a 2600 display. That's where I get all my GPS stuff from. It is the auto steer. I'm just running SF1. So there's a little bit of an explanation of what I've got going on here. As you can see, it maps where I've planted, so I know where I've been. And each one of those lines is every 40 feet, so that tells me where I need to go. The dark blue is where I've overlapped, and that's just because I turned around to fill up with seed. Pretty basic. Once again, for you people that don't know a lot about farming or tractors, shifters, forward and reverse. And then this is a power shift tractor, so shift up, shift down. There's no need to use the clutch. This is your throttle, throttle up, throttle down. These 4 levers right here are hydraulic remotes. This one right here raises and lowers the planter. These 2 right here turn on and off the vacuum systems that suck the seed up against those plates I talked about. And this lever way over here is the hydraulic drive. Pretty much just leave it engaged all the time. That way when the planter goes down, the meters start turning and you're putting seed out. Going back here, this is the control box. You can turn the row clutches on and off, whether you wanted to plant with half the planter on the left or the right. You control your row markers from here. And this is how you fold the planter. Raises the hitch up and down, raises the wheels up and down for transport, plant, or transport mode is right there. This box right here is the planter. I say the specific controls of it. It'll tell you left vacuum, right vacuum. That's how many inch-pounds of vacuum you're pulling against the plates. We run about 20 pounds of vacuum, so it's handy to see right here if you've got a problem or anything. The seating rate, this is where I can set the seating rate. I've got several of them in here. I'm about 32,000 right now. That's pretty close to 7. Seed every 7 inches, so that's where I'm running it. I could change it to anything. You put in what plate you've got and then tell it, you know, what your rate wants to be, and it'll do all the calculations, and it knows how fast to turn the meter. Other than that, pretty straightforward. I've got an iPad mount right there. My cell phone goes right there. That is a row unit camera that looks backwards at the row unit, so you can kind of see the trench and different things that are behind the fertilizer tanks that you can't see from the cab. So that is a pretty neat feature that I've added this year. Other than that, it's pretty simple. I've upgraded with LED lights. I've got LED light bars all the way around. It is older, but it's paid for and it gets the job done, and that's how I like them. This is an 855 big cam Cummins. Makes right at 400 horse. This one is set to stock, so safety wire still on the pump. It has not been turned up. This has been a pretty good tractor. We've had it for an extremely long time. Use it to pull my air seeder and my planter and do some dirt moving with a scraper and things like that. No DEF or regen, it's just raw power. So there is a basic explanation of how this cotton planter works. I know there's probably some YouTube experts out there that are going to tell me what I didn't say and what I should have said. So I'll be ready for any comments. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them. If there's anything that I missed, shoot, go ahead and tell me. You know, I don't know it all. Maybe I taught somebody something today, but I'm always willing to learn. A little bit of no-till farming discussion here. We are planting this cotton right now back into standing wheat. I had some wheat left over. I didn't want to go buy any cover crop because this wheat would make plenty of cover. This right here is some rows that I've already planted. As you can see, that planter actually mats this stuff down over the ground, and I mean, you've got to dig pretty good to get down to the soil. There's some guys a mile from here that are probably going to try to plant today on some till ground because they're dry. This stuff right here won't go for another 2 or 3 days. So moisture retention is huge, and this field right here will continue to retain moisture all year. It gets dry around here. We're in North Texas. It does not rain as much as we would like. We do not have irrigation. So this right here will make like a sponge over the ground and retain that moisture all year long. I've had this cover growing since about October. Some people would come in here and cut this wheat. Wheat is incredibly cheap right now. I didn't spray it or anything all year. I put a little bit of fertilizer on it just to get it going. And here's what we've got. This is exactly what I wanted. This is what I planted it for. I've got some wheat that grew pretty good that I'm gonna cut with a combine and then come in and plant the cotton directly in the stubble behind it. But as far as I'm concerned, this right here looks better than any freshly plowed field I've ever seen. Moisture retention, weed suppression, cooler ground, higher moisture content. How could you go wrong? Why would you ever want to pull a plow ever again? I'll come in and spray this as soon as it dries up, kill all the little green stuff that's coming. It's just some grasses and things. There's no broadleafs or anything in this field. We've knocked most of them out with crop rotation. I mean, there'll be one every once in a while, but we definitely don't have a problem there. Burn down kill, and this is good to go. No need for a disc or a chisel plow ever again.